Hello and welcome. I'm Mixed Light and this is my channel. For anybody who's been around here for any amount of time, you probably know that I am fascinated by ghost ships or sunken ships. Anything scary and creepy that has to do with a lot of deep water and disappeared people. So, it shouldn't surprise you that today I'm going to tell you about a Bermuda Triangle mystery. It's about the Uss Cyclops, which disappeared without a trace. Before we get started, if you would please give this video a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. If you would like to be subscribed and you are not, please go ahead and click that subscribe button and click that bell too if you'd like to be notified when my content goes live. Let's get started, shall we? How is it even possible that the biggest ship in the U.S. Navy vanished without a trace? This was the question on many people's minds in March of 1918, when an enormous collier, the USS Cyclops, disappeared on a voyage between the West Indies to Baltimore. 100 years later, this mystery is no closer to being answered. The Cyclops was nearly 500 feet long. It had a crew of 306 people and around 11,000 tons of manganese on board. She'd been sailing successfully since 1910. She'd been traveling between the Baltic Sea, the Caribbean, and Mexico, and assisting with moving coal around the world and helping refugees. Then, in 1917, when America entered World War I, the Cyclops became a naval key asset, transporting troops and coal to fuel other ships all over the world. In March of 1918, the ship was given a new cargo, tons and tons of dense manganese ore used in steel making. She left Brazil loaded up with the brittle metal, then voyaged to Barbados to resupply for the long journey home to Baltimore. The last known message from the ship simply said, "Weather fair, all well." But on the 9-day journey, something went very wrong, and no one from the ship was ever seen or heard from again, vanishing without even an SOS. In a feature published a couple of years after the ship's disappearance, Santa Fe magazine described the strangeness of the disappearance. Usually, a wooden bucket or a cork life preserver identified as belonging to a lost ship is picked up after a wreck. But not so with the Cyclops. She just disappeared as though some gigantic monster of the sea grabbed her, men and all, and sent her into the depths of the ocean. And the suddenness of her destruction is amplified by the absence of any wireless calls for help being picked up by any ship along the route. Throughout the decades, there have been a flurry of sometimes sensational theories about the ship's disappearance, as one among more than 100 ships and planes to have mysteriously disappeared in the so-called Bermuda Triangle, the region roughly bounded by Bermuda, Miami, and Puerto Rico. Was the ship eaten by some beast of the deep, carried off as evidenced by UFOs, or simply scuppered by a storm? At the time, people wondered whether the ship and crew had been victim of a German submarine or a raider. It was barely a year into the war, and the Cyclops would have made a strategic target. Yet, nothing materialized, and as time went on, it has become less and less likely that German crafts had been in the area at all. Others have pointed fingers at the captain, George W. Worley. Months earlier, some members of the crew claimed Worley was a drunk, unsuitable to steer a ship. There were even reports of a minor mutiny staged on board of the ship. The Navy defended Worley of these charges, and he returned to his command with apparently little fanfare. The U.S. Navy says, in its official statement about the Cyclops, the disappearance of this ship has been one of the most baffling mysteries in the history of the Navy. All attempts to locate her have proved unsuccessful. Some still cling to investigations, particularly those with a personal connection to the ship. Marvin Barish is the descendant of one of the firefighters aboard the ship. He spent more than a decade researching its history, painstakingly gathering Navy records, ship logs, and any information that might come in useful, including a blackened bag of manganese ore. The whole existence of the ship has been swept under the rug, he told the Baltimore Sun. It wasn't like it was a lost ship in a glorious battle. It just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Barish has his own suspicions about what happened to his lost Colossus. A series of mechanical failures, a crew unused to the new heavy cargo, and a final great rolling wave that tipped the ship and all of her passengers into the ocean forever. All of this, he thinks, may have coincided with the ship passing over the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest part of the Atlantic, where she would be near irretrievable. Lying on the cold, dark floor of the ocean with all of her men. Despite his misgivings, Barish retains some hope that the ship will be discovered, especially as undersea exploration technology improves. There are fewer and fewer lost shipwrecks every year, with high-tech devices spotting vessels believed to be gone for good. The Cyclops may be next on the list. I just want her to be found, Barish said. I want the 309 to be at rest, as well as the families. It's something everybody needs. Some resolution. So what do you think? Some mystery involving the Bermuda Triangle? Some large wave that pulled her down into the Puerto Rico Trench? Was it a UFO that just took her right off the ocean? We may never know. And that's what I like about it. Thank you for coming. Good night.